Okay, I got a black Squire right here, Stratocaster. It's a 1992, made in Korea. It's in fairly good condition. A few bangs here and there, but that's not a big deal with a Strat. There's a lot of black Stratocasters out there, whatever brand they are, some cheaper, some better. But that's the reason why I'm doing this video, like what can you do with a black Strat if you don't want the black paint. Obviously you can paint the whole guitar, or if you're a fan of Eddie Van Halen, you can use the black as your base for the black stripes. And it really doesn't matter what condition it's in, if it's scratched or whatever, because it's a Van Halen paint job. So I've done quite a few of these. I'm not saying it's the right way, but I'm going to do this guitar in just about real time. Maybe not every single bit, but just about in real time. And I already have my soldering iron heating up, and I really only need to desolder the two wires that are here, I think. So I'm going to just take it apart right now, and actually I should have said this. If this has what they call a swimming pool route, I won't make it a traditional Eddie Van Halen guitar. I might make it something else. I can't remember if this is routed like a Strat where it's, you know, routed out like that, or if it's one big route. We'll have to see. So if it is got the swimming pool route, I'll have to do something different. Now these strings are old, but I'm going to just show something you can do if you have good strings, and I'm going to try to save these just for now. Like obviously eventually I'm going to put new ones on, but I'm just detuning them up a bit. And you can use a capo or like an older capo, but I'm going to use tape just to kind of hold the strings in place. Right about there. So what you can do is just loosen everything up. It's actually 3 wires. This is the 3rd wire that you have to take off to paint one of these Strats. This is the ground wire. You can take a picture of how far the screws were in, or count the threads that are showing if you're worried about you know, getting it back to the way it was. But chances are you might not want it the way it was. Okay, so that's about 5 minutes and I have this already off. And you can just set this aside and leave it like this so they don't get like tangled if you have new strings and you want to reuse them. Now we'll get to the other two wires that we need to desolder. Okay, so that's it, and I'll unplug my soldering iron now and then put it aside to cool. So when you're taking this apart, you don't need to remove these two screws or the screws on each side of the pickups. I mean, if you were just changing this whole thing, you can just leave them in for now. These are loose and there's something going on there, but I don't know, I haven't had this apart yet. So we'll see in a minute what's going on inside. I had this one screw I started, but let's see. Oh, good. This is the type of routing that I was hoping it was. So this will be perfect for a Van Halen guitar. I know I've had the mini Strats where the whole thing was routed out and it just doesn't look right. And there's different brands of Strat copies that this is all routed out. And I've done them where I'll leave the white pickguard on, or I even put wood in one, but it's a lot of extra work. If you can get this type, it's much better. This, somebody's worked on this before. They don't really look like aftermarket pickups, but they're not in there right, the pickups. And as of right now, while I'm filming this, I'm not sure there's room for a humbucker in here. I might do that. I might just put the two single coils in here. I'm not sure. I originally, when I knew I was going to be getting this guitar as a trade, I thought to myself that I'm going to go buy, order the EVH Frankenstrat humbucker, and I thought, it'd be like, I don't know, $50 maybe, but I looked it up and it's 170. So I'm definitely not doing that. I don't need that kind of a pickup. It's not going to improve my playing. It's just not worth it, the investment for me. I just enjoy, messing around with these guitars, and I enjoy painting them. So I'm going to either go stock but reconfigure it, or put a humbucker in there. And either way, since I'm not using the pickguard, I'll have to use put a little bit of wood under here or something different. And that's why I saved those old strings. I'm going to temporarily install the old strings when I'm ready to get the height for the pickup. I just want to use that to try to help me set it up. I'm a trial and error kind of guy, and that's what I do. If I were to measure things, it's not going to come out right. I like to set things up and build that way. Everything works out better for me that way than to try to measure things. It just doesn't work out. So I just temporarily reinstalled the neck and just put a couple of screws in here. And looking at this humbucker here and where it would be fretted at the, as far down as they would be, it probably just need like a thin piece of wood in there, and I'll just glue that to the bottom, and that'll enable me to screw right down to the wood. So the one piece fits, and that'll be a good height for me. The only thing is I'll just have to drill a little hole for the ground wire from the spring claw on the other side, and you can do as much work as you'd like on this. I'm just going to glue it in place, and it's going to get painted when I do it. But if you're like you want to do body filler or something there, you can do that. But I don't need to do that. I can't really tell you what the thickness of the wood was because I don't have any measuring tools right offhand. But these were just inside a cigar box, and this is what it looked like. It's a very light wood. It's made just as a spacer. It'll be fine. So I have a few clamps like these, and I didn't get these from a guitar supply store, guitar repair supply store. I got these from Harbor Freight, and they weren't that expensive, but they're really good for working on guitars because they can stretch in. So I always save chopsticks. They're good for filling holes and doing different things, and a lot of people buy these skewers. I got these at the supermarket. They're pointed, and you can use them to fill a hole, cut them, fill a hole that's, different sizes. But they're also useful. You can use it to clean up glue, just any kind of thing. You can figure out different things you can use them for. But you can just kind of wrap this is like a baby wipe, and you can wrap it around it and use it to just get in there, because your finger's too big. Get in there and get the glue out. That squeezes out when you're clamping a piece of wood. So I cleaned it up. I did end up putting some filler in here, but mostly to just give it a little bit of a uniform look, but mostly to so it would take the paint a little bit better. So then the next step, I'm just going to scuff up the paint a little bit, and then I'll clean it with alcohol. That's what I use. Other people use Windex or specific guitar cleaning products or for paint. I don't use any of that. I just use the alcohol. But you should check. I do mostly Strats of all kinds, from Fender all the way down to the cheapest copy, and I've never had an issue with the rubbing alcohol. But you should check for your specific paint if it's okay. I use it because we always have it in the house, and it's cheap and it works. So for the cleaning and buffing, I always use old t-shirts. And that's for the same reason that I use the alcohol, because we always have old t-shirts around. They're cheap, they're free actually, and they work, most importantly. I use them for the cleaning, for buffing, polishing, everything. Just use the part that doesn't have seams and doesn't have any printing on it. Now what I didn't show, that I just did off camera, was I used my air compressor, and I just blew air all in all the holes, mostly in the front, but also just in here. You want to blow air in here, especially on the front, but also in all these holes, all these, because if you don't do that, once you go spraying, the paint's going to blow into those holes, and it's going to blow dust out. So you definitely don't want that. And then after you attach, if you're going to use like a stick, like I do, like a board, after you attach the board, you're going to want to blow air in this area especially, because in the neck pocket, because you could get sawdust or wood dust from drilling the holes. So you could get that. So you want to blow it again in this area before you paint. So I scuffed it, cleaned it, and now I'm going to tape it. I'll do the back in real time, just so you see, and then the front I'll just do as a time lapse. And what I'll do is I'll just find a picture of a Frankenstrat online, and then I'll just not copy it, but just get some of the general look. Okay, so I just looked up a picture online. This is just a guitar. This is an EVH guitar that's on sale on the Music Zoo, I think it was. But anyway, they have a bunch of pictures there, and I've used them for, a guide. So I don't necessarily have all the right sizes of paint, of tape. I'm just going to use these two. This is from anywhere, like a hardware store, and this is from an auto parts store. This was from Napa in my town. So the only thing you have to keep in mind is that wherever you tape at this point, that'll become a black stripe. So again, I just try to get the idea of the Frankenstrat. So I'll just put it in the areas where, you can do anything you want, but you can order a template if you want. You can make it exact, or you can do like what I'm doing, just random stuff that's similar to the original one. And what I should explain is the way that I paint these nowadays. What I used to do is tape it over the black, paint the white, leave that tape on, and then I would paint over the red. Then I would tape it and then paint the red. Nowadays I do it a little different to try to get less like pull off from the paint. So what I will do nowadays usually is tape it, paint the white, and then pull that tape off as soon as it's like the same, within a little bit. I'll pull that tape off. So that's why I try to have kind of like retapable pieces. I'll pull the tape off, and then I'll retape it, taping over the black stripes and then taping for the white stripes. You'll see what I mean. If I didn't explain it well enough, you'll see what I mean when I get it. You can just do like little random tears like that too, because that's the way the original one was anyway. And this is just a hobby knife that I'm using. So let's see. Okay, so these are the two colors that I use. So if you didn't have a black guitar to start with, you could use primer and use universal black. But since we're starting with a black guitar, the white is called Wimbledon white. There's the part number. And then the red is called Super Red 2. And there's the part number. You can use, if you want a brighter white or a different color red, you could do that. But I got these colors from another YouTube channel, or from a guy that did research for like 2 years on which colors Eddie used, or like the closest that you could get nowadays. He used Schwinn bicycle paint, but this is very close according to his research. And his channel is called Johnny B Guitars, if I remember correctly. And this is how much I paid. That's for 2 cans. And that's from Napa Auto Parts. So this is all ready to go out and get the first coat of white. I'll do 3 to 6 coats of white. And it's actually I live in New Jersey and it's November and it's pretty cold out right now. It's 40 degrees right now. It's in the morning. And most people would recommend that you don't paint. But I paint year round, and I'd rather paint when it's colder than when it's hot and humid. Any mistakes I can wet sand out and clear coat later, but I don't have a place to paint. I don't have like a paint booth or anywhere inside. I don't have a garage inside to paint. So I'll just paint this. What I do is I'll take it outside really quick and just give it a coat of paint as quick as I can and bring it right back in and hang it up. And I'll just keep doing that. And I'll leave the paint and the guitar inside together. I don't heat the paint up. Some people do that. I don't do that. I didn't see much change or difference in doing that. And like I said, whatever issues I've ever had in the past, wet sanding always takes care of it. So this is a Sunday morning around 9 o'clock, and the tape came off well, so I'll let this sit till after lunch, and then maybe 1 or 2 o'clock I'll retape all the black, and then I'll tape over whatever I want to be a white stripe, and then paint the red, and then I'll do that like 3 coats, and then pull that tape off immediately, and then I'll let it sit. Probably a week. I don't normally let it sit that long, but I might let it sit since it's colder out. We'll see. But this is already dry to the touch. So this has been about 4 hours since the white was painted, and now I'm going to tape over all the black and then tape over the white that I need to be for the white stripes. And when I do these Frankenstrats, as I said, I don't try to copy it, but I do try to get this element, this look. I try to get this look here, and also on the front. I'll show that, what I like on that. I'm all ready for the paint, for the red. And the couple of elements that I like to always try to not copy, but to just have represented, is whatever this thing is that he has. And I like where there's red and then a white band on the side. That to me is 2 of the things that I really like to get into the paint job. So now I'm going to go paint the red. All right, this is about 10 minutes since the last coat. It's still kind of tacky, so I'm just going to be careful. And again, the reason why I'm doing that is so that it doesn't cure over top of the tape. If that, in that case, for some reason, say you can't take it off, you get called away for something, you'd have to cut along all the edges. It's really hard on my eyes, so I don't like doing that. And this comes off pretty good this way. See how clean that is? I mean, there are some edges there where it's not that clean, but that's not because of the way I'm pulling it. That's because of the tape I used. It's probably just like homeowners paint tape for painting. So I used about three coats of paint on each color. And the reason why I did that, I won't be using any clear coat. Now normally if you weren't using clear coat, you might want to build up the layers more so you have more to wet sand so that you don't sand through the color. And in this case, I want to sand through the color because I want to have the look of natural wear, and it will look like that. I've done quite a few of these where I just will sand, and normally you stay away from the edges, but in this case I'll sand towards the edges, and so the red will fade a bit, and it'll look like wear. It'll look like just somebody's sweaty arm has been on it for years, and a little bit of the white will show under the red, and then under the white a little bit of the black will show. It's a pretty cool look. But you'll see that when we, hopefully we'll see that when we wet sand it. So far so good, look at that. I mean, that's a really nice look, I think. Yeah, so if you have like little edges here that can come over either to an open spot like this route, or if you have them where they come over to like another piece of tape, like say here, those are a lot easier to start. And this one came out pretty good so far. And as I was saying about how I want mine to come out with the wet sanding and showing some wear. Now, if you wanted to make yours look perfect and like brand new, well then, after you pull this tape, you could put quite a few layers of clear on top, and then that would enable you to wet sand it perfectly flat without cutting into any of the colors. But I never do that on these types. I think I did it on the Paul Reed Smith one that I painted. I think I used clear on that one, because that one I wanted to come out really nice. Because it was a Paul Reed Smith, I just figured I'd try to do more of a clean job. Anyway, this came out, and the tape pull came out as good as I could have expected. I'm happy with that. This is about 4 hours after I pulled the final tape off, and I just wanted to show how dry this is. And I've consistently wet sanded this type of paint the day after, like 24 hours. In this case, I'm gonna wait a week probably, just because not because I have to, but because I have other things to do. But it turned out great. The tape came off well. There's some chunks here that's where there was a damage to the body, but I didn't even try to fix it. There's some orange peel, but I think it's going to really buff out great. I think it's going to look awesome, and with the maple neck, I think it's going to be a really nice guitar. So I'll be back, and I'm going to wet sand it, and we'll see how it looks. All right, I'm going to take, I have a few minutes before work, so I'm just going to take a really quick pass over this. I did a little bit on the back here already, but I'm just going to go across and do the front with some 1200. If this were clear coated and had a lot of orange peel, I might start at like 800 or 1000, but I'm not going for a super, fine finish. So I'm starting with 1200, and I might just go up to 2000, I'm not sure yet. So that's about how I would like it. Still orange peel there, but I'm going to keep going a little bit higher with the grits. But you can see how much orange peel is there, and there's a bit less on this now. And normally I would stay away from the edges, but when I'm doing a Van Halen paint job, I go along the edges to try to get some natural looking wear. So I'll speed it up and do the rest. All right, I'm going to go from the 1200, I'm going right up to the 2500 wet sanding. And I figured before I speed up the video, that I'll mention a few things. I know some people like to put glue in the holes, and I've done that before. And the reason for that is so that you don't get water trapped in there, and maybe it might crack the paint or the wood. I don't do that anymore, unless maybe I was working on someone else's guitar and I was worried it might get damaged. But for myself, I just don't do it. And also, as far as clear coats go, a lot of times I've just did the primer, color, and the clear all in the same day. But you can change things up. For example, in this case, if you're wet sanding this and then you change your mind, like, oh, I like the way it's looking and I want to preserve it and use clear, you could, before you do the polish or anything like that, you could go ahead and do the clear on it. I'm still not going to use clear. I'm still just going to have the way it is, similar to Ed's, but I don't think he even wet sanded his. I'm pretty sure he didn't, judging by the way it looked. His pretty much got buffed just from using it, I think, and rubbing against his clothing and his arms and stuff. One of the final steps for this body will be to use some rubbing compound, polishing compound, and then I'll finish up with some wax. I always say that I only use t-shirts on the for polishing, but on this one I was using like an old sock, and it seemed to work pretty well. So I'm not out of t-shirts, but I just grabbed this and I was trying it, and it seems to work pretty well, so I'll continue using it. Alright, so I just put a coat of wax on this after I finished polishing it, wet sanding and polishing. And I have to admit something. I didn't wait a week. This is the next day. This is about 10 o'clock the day after that I finished painting around 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I guess I'm kind of like a kid at Christmas that wanted to open his presents up before Christmas. But I do this all the time this way. And I've never had an issue, and I have at least 2 guitars in my collection right now that have the paint jobs are done the exact same way as this, and they're like, I don't mean they're the Van Halen, but they're done the same way where I wet sanded them the next day, and they're at least a year old and they don't have any issues whatsoever. And I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but the type of finish that I was going for, like the wear, I doubt it will show, but it might. I wanted to wet sand just so that you just kind of start to see the next color coming through. Like here, there's a little bit of white showing, and here's white on here on the edges. Yeah, just kind of like, it's just kind of starting to come through. Just a show of age, but like well taken care of aged look. Like, so not, it's not beat up. But anyway, I'm gonna wire this up like a Telecaster. So I won't have this switch like Eddie had inside here. I'll probably, as of right now anyway, I'll use a 3-way switch. If this switch is any good, I found this in my collection because I want the guitar to be a little bit more versatile. I painted this today. It's similar to the neck pickup color that Ed had. So I'll put a regular pickup in here, the humbucker here, and I'll wire it up with 1 tone, 1 volume. I'll cut the original pickguard down and I'll paint it black. That should give me the look and the performance that I want. I use the neck pickup a lot, and on my Telecaster I usually go in the middle, and on the Stratocaster I go usually on the 4th, which is these two. But we'll see. If this doesn't work, then I'll just use the humbucker. Okay, so I'm going to prepare the pickguard to be painted. I loosened these up already. A little bit, okay. Now, let's see. One thing before you paint a pickguard you want to really be careful of, and I don't think this is the case in this one, but I see a lot of used guitars where there's still like that clear cellophane and sometimes even a couple layers of it. And even though sometimes it'll be off of here, but you'll see it underneath. And some people think that's a good thing, but I hate when it's like that. Like they'll say, oh, this guitar's 20 years old, but it still has the cellophane on the plastic. I don't think that's a good thing, because it's like hard to get off and it doesn't age well. There's a lot of just dust under here. I don't think there's any plastic on this one. You'll see when I go to solder, I'm going to reuse these pots and maybe one of the pickups. But somebody's worked on this before. This pot especially is a real mess. So I'll clean it up as best I can. I don't have like the solder suckers like some people have or whatever. I'll just do my best with that. So I want to make sure before I cut the pickguard, I want to make sure that I get this part covered. I guess I could use the screw for a reference, but I'm just going to put a piece of tape on there so that I know that it's going to be covered. But yeah, there's a screw right there anyway. So I guess I'm going to kind of just cut up from here. Maybe like that. I'll take one more look at the original one and see how he did his. Yeah, I had my shape off. The original one is a little bit more like down on this angle. I had it the other way. Now I have a Dremel, but I don't have, like, say, a scroll saw or anything like that. So I think what I'm going to try is just cutting it with some tin shears, and I'll try to get like a line on here first. Oops. That worked better than I thought it would, and I'm going to save this because I'll probably use this in a future project. So I'll probably just scuff this, just kind of flatten this edge a little bit. I won't bevel it because the original one probably wasn't anyway. It's more of a jagged cut. So same as painting the guitar, I'll just scuff, clean it with alcohol, and then primer and paint it. I didn't even check that beforehand to see if the Telecaster switch fit, but it does. I did this soldering off camera, mostly because I was using the internet to get pictures, get a wiring diagram. But my soldering's not that great anyway, so it takes me longer. I don't really like doing things like up close with my eyes. It's just takes me a little bit longer than probably most people. But I did plug it in, and everything seemed to be working. I guess I'll put this up here. Let me see how this stuff fits. Kept these wires extra long because I wasn't sure how much I needed. These strings are really bad, but I'm just using them to, you know, line up the pickups, and I'm also going to use them just for getting the guitar back together, because you never know, I might have to take the guitar apart again, and I don't want to take it apart with new strings on it and possibly ruin them. So these are old and rusty and kind of have kinks in them, so they might even break when I retighten them, not sure. So everything's working. I have it on a clean amp, but I'll just, yeah, it's pretty much together. So I'll just tune it up and then see what I want to do about this pickup. Okay, so this is a Wednesday morning, and I got this past Saturday afternoon, actually. By Saturday night I had it disassembled, and Sunday morning I painted the white stripes on. Sunday afternoon I painted the red, and then Monday night, I believe it was, I wet sanded it. It feels nice and smooth. This paint cures in 24 hours, or you can wet sand it in 24 hours, and that's what I've read on their website also. I've never had an issue, ever, with this brand paint. I just had an issue with another brand that's been on the guitar for like a month. I used a different clear, and you touch it and it's like sticky still, even after a month. I've never had that issue with this paint. I will put a little sound demo up that's going to have lots of mistakes. It's got everything going against it. I got the old strings on here. One of them I think is kind of dead. This high E string had like some fuzz on it, which I tried to get most of it off. And also I just think it's a dead string basically. So I have old rusty strings. I have an amp that to me sounds good, but it's not, doesn't really have distortion. And I just can't seem to ever play on camera. Not that I'm great off camera, but on camera, it's like, or in front of people, it's just dreadful. But I still like to show that everything is working, you know, all the wiring and just that the guitar plays. It's a really nice guitar. I think I mentioned this, but it's a 1992 made in Korea Squire. Pretty light. Every one of these so far that I've made, I ended up selling. So this one, I will probably keep it unless somebody offers me a decent price for it, which I don't think at this moment that I'm going to put it up for sale, but I like to have it. I like to have my own anyway, and this is a good example. It's working well. We'll see how it does with the new strings, but obviously you want to sell one that's working well too. So, but I think I'll keep this one. I think I just covered just about everything that I do on these. Everything that I did was on camera. I didn't do anything extra to this off camera that I can think of. I might have put these strap buttons on, but I don't think I did anything else. Oh, I did put this on off camera, but that's just screwing this down. So I didn't do any extra buffing or sanding or anything. Everything that you see is what I did. Everything that I did, I showed on camera. And I think the results are pretty good for like a weekend job. You know, long weekend job maybe, 4-day weekend job. Although I didn't have a 4-day weekend. I did this, you know, off late at night and early in the morning. So it's very, very nice guitar. Squires are, you know, I don't think they're underrated. I think a lot of people know that they're pretty good, but there's still some people that like won't touch them, but I'm not like that. I like cheap guitars, and especially ones that you're not afraid to modify, you know. All right, thanks for watching, and have a great day.